Hello friends, Bcom Sam 3 English medium. So guys, yesterday we were discussing about the public sector and the positive aspect of public sector, the negative aspect of public sector, and there were some of the arguments for the public sector. It was in the favor of public sector. It was in the against of public sector. And this is also our last chapter. So guys, there are some of the points which were left yesterday to discuss about. We will do it today, and finally in this lecture we are going to finish, or we can say we are going to conclude your syllabus. So as you have the internal exam on the 2nd of your November, so you need to do the preparation of it, and you also need to focus on the important points. So guys, here we are going to discuss about the privatization and the disinvestment. So guys, let's see what is there in the privatization. What is the privatizations, the benefits, or we can say the positive aspect of the privatization, negative aspect of the privatizations when the India has implemented, or we can say that implemented the system of privatization, and when the privatization come into the existence in our country. So guys, let's see what is the privatization. First of all, we will understand the basic meaning of the privatization, or we can say that the privatization means transfer of ownership. Now what is ownership? That you know that ownership is something that we own, something on which we have the right, so that we can say it's an ownership of us. So let's see, privatization means transfer of ownership and or management of an enterprise from the public sector to the private sector. So guys, here we have the meaning on the screen, that what the privatization means. Privatization means the transfer, either the transformation of the ownership of the public sector to the private sector, or we can say transformation of the management of the public sector to the private sector. So whether it is whether it is about the ownership, or it might be about the management, but when both of the things, or both the things, or we can say either of these both things, when transferred to the private sector, it is called the privatization. Now guys, we will understand it deeply, that it also means the withdrawal of the state from an industry or sector, partially or fully. Privatization marks a change from dogmatism to the pragmatism and a range of ideas. In the narrow sense, privatization implies the induction of private ownership in publicly owned enterprise. So guys, what is privatization? Privatization means the enterprises which are owned, which were owned by the public, or we can say which were owned by the state or the central government. Now they have transferred their ownership to the private enterprises, or we can say to the private sector. So this is known as the privatization. Now we will see further about the definition of the privatizations. Here we have some of the definitions which were given by the different economists. Let's see what the definition says. So here we have the definition on the screen. The first definition is given by Susan K. Jones, defines the concept in his manner, in this manner. The term privatization refers to any shift in activity from public to private sector. So guys, here we can see clearly that it is a shift in activity from public to private sector. It is known as privatization. Whatever the activity it is, when it is shift from public to the private sector, it is known as privatization. We will read further. They could involve merely the introduction of private capital or management enterprise into a public sector activity. So guys, whether it is about the capital or about the management, when it has been shifted to the private sector, we know we can say it is a privatization. Now we will read further, but more typically it involves the transfer of ownership of public enterprises to the private sector. So guys, here we have the definition that says that when either the management, or we can say the ownership of the public enterprise, when it transfer, or we can say shifted to the private sector, it is known as privatization. Now guys, we will see the second definition that is on the screen. Second definition says it is given by the Barban Lee and the John Nellis, define private sector as privatization is the general process of involving the private sector in the ownership or operation of the state owned enterprises. So guys, when we involve the private sector in the management, or we can just say in the operation of the public sector enterprises, it is known as the privatization. This definition is given by these economists. Now we will read further. Thus the term refers to private purchase of all or part of a company. It covers contracting out and the privatization of management through management contract, leases or franchisee arrangement. So guys, these are some of the forms, or we can say the way, or we can say the contract or the agreements that has taken over by either the wholly taken over of the public sector, or we can say it might be the partially transformation of the ownership, or we can say the management, that is known by that is known as the privatization. Now we will see the third definition that is on the screen, which is Viren J. Shah says privatization means economic democracy. So here we have a very short definition given by the Viren J. Shah. Viren J. Shah says privatization means economic democracy. Democracy means to give the authority to the public. Now, guys, the fourth definition that we have on the screen, that is Ziban K. Here's the words is written something Mukli Upadhyay. He says privatization is a process in which government dominance is reduced in all economic activities. When the government dominance is reduced, when there is no highly dominance of the government on the industries, when private sectors involved in the management or the operation activity of any public sector, it is known as privatization. So guys, here we have seen four definitions given by different economics that what the privatization means. Now, guys, we will see further and read the paragraph given here. Thus, the privatization is a process in which private sector is involved in the ownership and the management of public sector, or transfer of ownership and management in the private sector, and economic democracy is being established by reducing government control in economic activities. So, guys, here you can clearly understand that what is privatization. Here, as I have said you, that privatization means it is a shifting of the ownership, or we can say the management from public sector to the private sector of any public enterprises is known as privatization. Now, guys, we will move further. Characteristics of privatization. Here we have the characteristics on the screen that you need to focus on. You need to write it down. You need to note it down for the preparation of your exam. Now we will read it. The first characteristics of privatization, it is a new concept. Privatization is a new concept which has emerged in the last 2 decades. Emerged in the last 2 decades. So guys, before last 2 decades, there is no such idea, or we can say there is no such concept of privatization. But so that we can say that privatization is implemented in India in 1991. So here, what the privatization is, that is a very new concept for any country. Now, guys, second point is universal concept. The concept of privatization has emerged not only in India, but it has developed all over the world. The countries like USA, UK, Japan, India, etc. has adopted this ideology. So guys, many countries in the world has adopted this ideology. So we can say it is an universal concept. Now guys, third point is wide concept. It is wide idea. It involves not only the transfer of public sector ownership to the private hands, but it limits the government involvement in the economic activities and protect private sector. Thus, it involves large number of activities such as reduced government share in the economic sector and expansion of private sector. So, guys, the privatization is a wide concept because it is not only about the transformation of ownership of public sector to the private sector, but it also about the interference, or we can say the dominance of government on the private sector. Now, guys, we will see the next point, that is economic democracy. It is a mean of establishing economic democracy. It provides chance to the private sector to operate in the economic activity freely. So, guys, as we can see that what the democracy means to give a chance to each and every citizen of the country. So, here we can say it is an economic democracy because by doing the privatization, private sector will also get a chance to operate in economic activities freely. Now, guys, the fifth point of the characteristics of privatization is a process. Privatization is a process which goes continuously. It cannot complete it in a certain period. It is a process which takes its shape slowly. So, guys, privatization is considered as a process because it is not a one-time activity that can be done or that can be finished for a particular time. But it is an ongoing process because the certain things is happening continuously day by day, and so it is a very slow shape, or we can say it is a process which take its shape very slowly. So privatization is considered as a process. Now, guys, the sixth point that we have on the screen, that is private sector in place of public sector. So private sector is being developed in a place of public sector in the process of privatization. So guys, as we know it very well that the enterprises which is owned by the state or the central government, now it has shifted its ownership to the private sector. So we can clearly say that private sector takes the place of public sector. Now guys, the 7 point that we have on the screen is reduction in state dominance. So guys, I know there is no need to have an explanation of this, that you know very well that the state dominance means we can say the concentration or we can say the force. So there is when there is a privatization, state and the central government's dominance has been reduced. Now, the 8 point that we have, that is assumption. The privatization is based on the assumption that private sector is more efficient in the management and control of an enterprise than the public sector. So, guys, it is such kind of assumption has been made by the public that when there is a public sector, there is no efficient management and there is no efficient decision making skills of the authorities. But when we talk about the private sector, then private sector has efficient management skill. They have a good productivity. They have a very good decision making skills. So such kind of assumption has also been made by the people. Then the ninth point that we have on the screen is a new strategy. It is a new strategy to face the challenges emerged in economic sphere recently. In the process of privatization, private sector takes the responsibility of economic development of the country. So guys, it is a new strategy because now the private sector is also responsible for the development of the economy. And in this strategy, private sector, as we have discussed already, that private sector have a good management skills, private sector have a good decision making skill, they have good productivity to produce goods and services. So with their effectiveness of the management skills and effectiveness of their production system, they also takes a responsibility for the economic development of a particular country. So it is a very new strategy. And guys, the 10th point that we have on the screen is that is wide area. Privatization is a wide concept. It involves various activities such as uh, denationalization, decontrol, deregulation, then economic liberalization, etc. So guys, privatization is a wide area because when there is a privatization is going on, such kind of things is happening on the country, that about denationalization, because people will get the services and the product from the private sector. Decontrol, there is no much control of the government on the private sector. Deregulations and economic liberalization, etc. People will get more freedom to do the business in private sector. So guys, here what are the characteristics all about the privatization. Now we will move further to the next point, that is way, or we can say the scope of privatization. Now guys, we will see over here that what are the different scope of privatization. Privatization covers different types of measures and techniques as discussed below. The first one is ownership measures. The sets of measures which transfer ownership of public enterprises fully or partially leads to privatization. So guys, you know it very well. First of all, when we talk about the ownership, let's discuss it very deeply, that the sets of measures which transfer ownership of public enterprises either fully or partially lead to privatization. The higher the proportion of transfer of ownership to the individual, cooperative or corporate sector, the greater the degree of privatization. This can be taken in three forms. So guys, here there are three different forms in which the ownership of the transformation of ownership has been done of public sectors to the private sector. Now the first one is total denationalization. It implies a complete transfer of ownership of a public enterprises in the private hands. So guys, when there is a total denationalization, it means the whatever the public enterprise has been running in the country, when there is a total transformation of ownership of public sector to the private sector, it is known as total denationalization. Now guys, we will see the next one, that is joint venture. It implies partial introduction of private partnership. The range of private ownership, or we can say, depends upon the nature of enterprise and government policy in this regard. So guys, here as we have the explanation of joint venture in this case, in these types of the ownership measure, there is a partially ownership that which will be transferred to the private sector. So in this kind of case, public sector and private sector both working together, in some of the industry, or we can say in some of the enterprises. So this is known as joint venture. Now guys, we will see the liquidation. Now what is liquidation? It implies the safe um, uh, of assets to somebody who may protect them for some purpose or some other purpose depending upon the preference of the buyer. So that liquidation means it is about the transformations of the assets that has been we can say held by the public sector. Now guys, we will see the fourth point, that is management buyout. It is a special version of denationalization. It implies sale of assets to the employees. For this purpose, appropriate provision of loans from bank is also made to the liable employees to take over ownership. The employees may form a cooperative to run the enterprise. So guys, here we can see the explanation. I know that the explanation is not quite readable, but then also we will discuss it very broadly, or we can say we will discuss it very deeply, that what about the management buyout. So guys, here in this case, it is a special version of denationalization. It implies sales of assets to the employees. So guys, when we need to do the privatization, the we can say the individual person, or we can say the private sector will buy the assets of the public sector. So this in this kind of scenario, it has been done that management buyout means in this kind of case the private sector will manage the, or we can say the operate the whole public sector enterprises. And this might also be done in the transformation of the ownership. Now guys, we need to discuss about organizational measures. As we have discussed about the ownership measures, now we will discuss about organizational measures. Following are the organizational measures to limit state control. Holding company, a holding company, first of all, the first measure of organizational measure is holding company. A holding company structure may be changed in such a way that the government limits its control intervention up to level decisions, and leaves the operating companies within the management to a sufficient degree of autonomy in decision making. Think the framework of market forces. So guys, holding company means this is a situation in which government has some kind of interference on on the ownership, or we can say when a particular public sector company has transferred its ownership to the private sector, uh, it is a holding company. Means government has also interference on that particular enterprise, and private sector has also some of the rights to take decisions. So when both the public and private sector has the equal dominance on particular enterprise, it is known as holding company. Now guys, the second is leasing. A public enterprise a public enterprise, while retaining ownership, may raise out to a private bidder for a specific period for use. The government employs the right of obtaining profits as per agreement. On her end, tenure of ownership is expected to lead to improve efficiency of the labor of the efficiency, or borrower the cost of operation. So guys, leasing, as you know, the meaning of lease. What is lease means? When a particular individual, or we can say a private sector, purchase a particular enterprise, or we can say a particular asset on a lease, means government give him a full control on that. In this kind of case, private sector will get 100% control on a particular asset that has been purchased by a private sector. Now guys, we will see the restructuring. What is restructuring? To being public sector enterprises under the market discipline, it would be desirable to go in for two forms of structuring. The one is financial restructuring, can be effected in the sense that accumulated losses are written off and capital composition is nationalized in respect of debt equity ratio. And the second is basic restructuring, may be affected by redefining the set of commercial activities which the enterprise will undertake henceforth. So guys, here what about the restructuring of different financial restructuring and basic restructuring. Now guys, we will see operational measures. What are the operational measures? These measures are intended to improve efficiency of the organization, even when full denationalization is not been undertaken, they in fact inject the spirit of commercialization in public enterprises. The measures include the grant of economy to the public enterprise. So guys, here in this case, when we talk about the operational measures, in this case, when the privatization done means when the ownership, or we can say the management of a public sector shifted to the private sector. In this kind of case, private sector has the command, or we can say private sector will manage the whole public sector. So the management, or we can say the operation will be in the hands of private sector to do the business well. So the public sector will be managed, or managed and operated by the private sector, is known as operational measures. Now guys, we will see a very important, we can say a very important point of this topic, or we can say a very important point of this chapter. Here we have the objective of privatization on the screen. We need to discuss the objective of privatization means, the government undertaken the privatization, liberalization, and the globalization in 1991 in our country. So what are the objective of privatization? Why has the government implemented, or we can say offer such kind of new economic policy in our country? So we will see the basic objectives of the privatization. Following objectives has been observed behind the process of privatization in the world. The first, the first objective is to improve the operational efficiency of public enterprises. So guys, as we know it very well that public enterprises, the management of public enterprises are not very good. They are not efficient. They are not capable enough, or we can say they are not qualified enough to take the decisions properly. So by doing the privatizations, it may possible, in some kind of the situations, that public sector, the we can say the management or the operation of public sector can be shifted to the private sector. So in this kind of case, private sector will manage the whole public enterprise, and the private sector will operate the whole public enterprise, so that uh, private sector have a good efficiency over the management. They will have a good productivity. They will have a qualified authorities to take the decisions appropriately. So guys, to improve the operational efficiency of the public enterprises, there need to have a privatization. So this is one of the objectives of the privatization. Now we will see the second objective, to develop competitive efficiency in the industries. So guys, as India has a mixed economy, here we have the public sector and the private sector. So by doing the privatization, there will be the competition in the market, so people will get a good quality product at a very low price. Now guys, we will see the third objective, that is to generate resources for deficit budget. Now guys, it is very important to have the privatization to generate resources for the deficit budget which has some deficit. They have not balanced their expenses. Then we need to generate the resources for the deficit budget to by doing the privatization. The fourth point is for the globalization of domestic industries. Privatization is very necessary, because by doing the privatization, they will private sectors have a very good productivity. They will have a very good capacity to expand their business, and by expanding their business, it might be possible to have a globalization. Our private companies, or we can say the companies which is in the private sector, they will expand their business to the other countries of the world, and by doing this, there will be a globalization effect. Then to invite foreign capital, when our country have a good industrial development, then the people of other countries will also be attracted to invest their money in our country. Then sixth point is to earn foreign currency by export promotion. So guys, by doing privatization, as we know it very well that private enterprises have a very good productivity. They have efficient management system. They have a very highly qualified authorities. So they have a very good decision making power, and private enterprises can expand their business. They will do their business in a very better way. So by doing privatization, there will be we can do a very good export promotion, or we can say we can increase our export activities. Now guys, the seven point, or we can say the seven objective of the privatization is to exploit natural resources of the country with efficiency. Means whatever the natural resources we are having, when a public sector is not capable enough to utilize all the resources that we have in our country, then we need to do the privatization, because by doing privatization, private sector will utilize all the resources that we have in our country. Then eighth objective is to emerge wide public ownership on the economic resources of the company. So this is also the one of the objective of the privatization. And then we will see the ninth point, that is to create an environment for rapid industrialization. So guys, when we need to have when we need to do the industrialization, when we need to grow our industries of our country, then we need to do the privatization, because in the privatization people will get more freedom to do the business, and by doing this the new entrepreneurs start their own business, and we can say there will be the rapid growth of industrialization in our country. 10th point, to accord priority to the welfare activities by government. So guys, to accord the priority to the welfare activities by the government, to operate public enterprises on commercial basis, to free the government from the loss making enterprises, and to protect the industry base. So these are the objective which is the objective of the privatization. So guys, in this lecture we have discussed about the privatization. If you left with any query or the confusion, you can contact me. I will explain the topic with you in a very proper way, so that it will be useful for your exam preparation. And here we are concluding your whole syllabus. So if you are if you have or we can say, if you arise any query or the confusion in the whole syllabus, in any chapter, in any topic, you can contact me. You should contact me. And I have expected, I have hoped that you have make a notebook and you have noted some of the important points from your chapter. And this is what all about this chapter. We will all the best for your exam, and if you need any help of mine, then you can contact me guys. I will help you in a better way. Thank you guys.